Hello everybody, Cobra Axis and Allies here, and as you can see, this is not my Global 36 map. You may have been able to tell from the video name. This is my new 1914 global map, not from HVG. This is my own custom map for those of you who haven't seen my reviews of this when I was making it online. A lot has changed since that few video series where I was basically showing you guys all of this map and its digital glory, but now it's finally printed out. It's the same type of scrim vinyl material that the historical board gaming maps are usually printed on, and that a lot of other Axis and Allies maps are printed on. So yeah, I guess we're just going to be going into a little quick show of basically this map in its entirety. And you can see I've got just Germany set up right now because the main reason I can't play this is that I don't have all of my nations painted, and hopefully I can get that done by the end of the end of school. So probably when I get out summertime, because with college classes and everything, there really isn't any hope of getting out of school to play this with my friends. So yeah, basically, I guess, like I said, we're just gonna go into like a little look of just kind of the scale of this map. And I guess first up, we're just going to start with Europe, just to give you a good look at how big this map is. And you can see here that, I guess, I'll go over here, get a better look. This is printed on a 4x6 vinyl sheet. So I guess you can really see too, the colors are really nice on this map. After seeing, I guess I was kind of inspired by historical board gaming with using these brighter colors, but also kind of keeping in the theme of Line in the Trenches map, which this map is heavily based off of, at least in the art design style. So in terms of the size of it, you can see here, this is a different German setup. There's lots of new units that I've added. Setup charts will be available soon, but you can see the amount of space that we've got there. Like, in Berlin there, you've got tons of room for different ships, markers, different sorts of units and everything. Even these more crowded places, like you can see in Hanover with that large artillery gun. Down here. And this is really just kind of, again, I won't be going into the units and how they work. That'll probably be in a video series if you guys want to see that. Definitely suggest leaving a comment and hitting the like button on this video. So you can see what I've got in terms of map design. We've got some cool little things like we've got a split Denmark where Germany controls Schleswig-Holstein up here. We've got a Heligoland over here, which is a special fortification area which will help you defend the German west coast right here. And then you can see here the navies in this game. I've really gone really like kind of, what's it called? I wanted this game to be really kind of historical, and also in the sense of just being a fun game to play. It's going to play a lot faster and more simple than something like Global War. So like if you've played Global 40 or just straight up 1914, you're really going to like this game because it's simple. You literally, there's more units. You could choose not to even add them to the game and just play with straight up 1914 units. But it's just one of those games where there's not a lot of diplomacy. It's just kind of, here's your side, these are your teammates, and then just go and hit the enemy. So yeah, you can see we've got tons of naval units here in the German setup, and a few submarines out here in the Atlantic. And then also just lots of room for strategies and everything. Like you can see in these seas that I've added, mainly the three kind of smaller oceans that you see a lot. We've got the Baltic here, which has been split up into a ton of different, Baltic, yes, Baltic. Thought I got that wrong for a second, but you can see we've got a ton of sea zones, so there's a lot of room for kind of, you don't have to just hit the Russian fleet, or the Russian fleet doesn't have to come out and get wiped out, or just they're locked in there. You've got ways to skirmish around and outflank and, go up here, convoy raid and leave the Russians behind. So yeah, a lot of playability there. We've got some little things like Franz Joseph Land up here held by the Austro-Hungarians. There's some random event cards that could bring that into the game if Russia doesn't go for it. We've got a large, like everything too is just big. Like I've really tried to, I've taken a lot of liberties with the size of things. Like of course, kind of keeping with 1914, Europe is huge, but that's kind of what needs to happen. But other things like London, I've really just made it massive. Like you can see I mean, London's just about the size of France and Spain combined, almost. And you can see I've really pushed it away from Europe. And that's to leave room for not only the Germans here, especially with these, it's mainly for these 3 sea zones where there's going to be a lot of naval action, and especially in the starting setup, a lot of navies. And mainly with these sea zones we've got, especially around Britain. Britain's going to be really focused on their navies in this game. So we've got a lot of room up here. There was a chart, or I guess what's it called, a turn marker chart where you had kind of the different turns and everything, and a income tracker, which I've also moved to along there. You don't need to use it if you don't want to, but I basically left that open because even though this is a lot of blank space that could have had that chart, it just keeps the clutter off the board. And I'd rather, put it on a different sheet that you could print out and then hang up on a wall, put it on a whiteboard, or even just keep it on a table out of the way. So we've got a awesome looking America, and as you can see, I've kind of used line in the trenches art design when it comes to basically America doesn't have to have the West Coast over there because they don't need it. Like they're not going to be, that's not a big theater of operation. So basically now America is this one big thing with all of the North American continent. So basically, like, there's no continents that have been cut up or split apart. This is just a full-on map. Plus the fact that there's still a ton of space. Like you can see here we've got America, and a big reason for this not being a split America, and a big reason for it being so huge, it could have been pretty small if we were just going to play standard Axis and Allies, but you can see we've got, with the German infantry there, again, a ton of space in all of these. And one big point of that is because not only is there going to be lots of units in this game, like in terms of infantry, you're stacking tons of infantry, your standard 1914 game. But there's also the fact that there's contested zones. My way is going to be a little bit different, but there's still going to be zones where, or like that trench warfare feeling, where you move into a zone, you have to fight in that zone before you can push forward. So that's one reason there's a lot of space in these territories. With America, America is big for 2 reasons. Now, if you're playing the normal 1914 kind of style, then you've just got a big America, and it helps if, Germany decides somehow to get to America and invade it. But it's mainly because Mexico, as you can see, Mexico is also a big kind of major player. They've got a decent economy and everything. And Germany has the ability to align Mexico, and not to the German side. Align Mexico as an actual nation, as like a major power. And there's going to be a lot of that in this game too. The fact that you could, say, treat this as a normal Axis minor where you move an infantry in, it all becomes German. But I've done this to, one, balance the game so that Germany or whatever nation's aligning other countries isn't making a ton of money. And also just for the cool fact of like having Mexico and all of its units be like Mexican, and also with Spain is another one, and the 2 Chinese factions are another one, where you're basically going to have all these different armies and everything, and yeah. So you can see again with the German setup, we've just got a few German colonial ships, all based off of different deployments during 1914 or at the start of the war. A lot of research. I probably put in Germany the most because you had nations like Britain who, like, they had a fleet there in the home isle, their main fleet. They had their Anzac, or at the time just Australian fleet, and then their Indian fleet. But with Germany, yes, they had their home fleet, but the fact that Germany just really liked to just throw their cruisers and smaller ships all over their colonial empire. So Germany's definitely, that's going to be one of their major tactics, is trying to get their units or their colonial fleet to like one congenious like blob, basically, to try to take out Allied shipping and transports and everything from the colonies. Another big feature about this map is just the in-depth nature of it when it comes to just the actual look. Now, as you can see, the seas are huge in this game. This is probably the biggest Atlantic gap that I've ever seen in an Axis and Allies game, which printed at this size, it works. But to fill up the seas, you've got I've added, a lot of just I guess we'll just say islands for now. You can see we've got Mexican colonial holdings out here in the Pacific. We've got some Norwegian claims down here in the far south of the world. We've got some German colonial possessions. I really like these two, the artwork. I think I showed you guys this in one of the reviews I did a while ago, but basically I've got a lot of the major kind of battles of the war all represented by different works of art in the sea zones. You can see we've got another nice looking area, which is the Caribbean. That's another area that will be definitely inspired by random event cards, can definitely like heat up the area, where you might have Germans aligning Haiti and Venezuela. Chile too is a pretty nice sized nation with their different territories. They've got a city zone. They won't start with a ton of units. They didn't have a historically super strong army, but they'll definitely, if Germany can get to Chile, have a good amount of units to maybe push into Argentina and Brazil, which are both pro-Allied states. I guess, so we've got shipping. Shipping is pretty much, again, in keeping with the simple nature, is it's basically global 40 shipping. So you roll up in a sea zone, you roll your D6, and then there's the money. And basically you wanna try to combat shipping. You basically just send units in and try to take out those convoy raiders. So Europe I kind of showed you, and definitely it is very in-depth. Sorry for the talking in the background, but so basically we've got Europe, which is, we've got Belgium as like two territories now. We've got Liège, which is their heavily defended border state, which at first glance the Allies may think that that's a good zone to hold. But in this game, heavy artillery is going to play a big part in negating city defenses and fortified areas like Liège. We've got Luxembourg, which is the first game, Axis and Allies game, that's had that. And I definitely thought, I wasn't going to add it, but because it's 1914 and they were a nation in that war, I decided to add them. They won't start with any army, and as you can see, you could kind of ignore it as Germany. You could just send troops into lower line and the French back. But if you want to invade it, you can. And you can see we've got a blow-up chart over here, which definitely adds a pretty big Luxembourg area. So if that heats up, you can use that. We've got Portugal, Gibraltar. Now, this map, I think I'm going to revise it. Just there's a few little things on it that aren't quite right. That I will probably just post the right version, but in this version I printed out, stuff like Gibraltar I feel like has to be right here with this naval base touching these two sea zones, and in doing so it'll help balance the game a lot more. When I was kind of not really playtesting but moving some units around, I noticed that should have been done beforehand. Other little things like you've got this little area I didn't color in. So there were a few little mishaps that I missed, but I will have those fixed so that when I post this thing to you guys, you will have the right version. So we've got a very nice looking Balkans area which is a big theater of this war, and of course World War I was started over the Balkans. So I guess we'll go to the other side to give you guys a better look so you can read the names and everything. But yeah, we've got Romania and Bulgaria are just kind of normal. They're kind of your standard Axis and Allies 1914 type areas. But we've got Serbia, which is a larger nation, Montenegro, Albania, and we've got Greece here, which is occupying a part of Albania. And so that'll be also something that random event cards can inspire a war between those two areas. Again, with some of the artwork, we've got the Austro-Hungarian Navy, which will be pretty huge, but again, balanced with the Allied fleets of the Mediterranean. Also, like I said, with the Baltic, making that kind of more in-depth, we've got a pretty nicely enlarged Mediterranean where there'll be a lot more space to move units around, and plus we've got a few sea zones up here in the Black Sea, so there'll definitely be ways of kind of, it's not that huge of a sea, so I couldn't do much with it, but the fact that the Russians will be here, and the Ottomans can move from 63 to 68 to convoy raid without having to attack the Russians, but the Russians could just choose to attack the Ottomans in return. So then moving down to Africa, we've got a pretty expanded North African theater, and a lot of this is mainly because, so you can see with these zones here, they're very similar to a normal Axis and Allies game. So, and those are really the zones you're going to be moving units in. These southern zones I kind of added because of some of the rebellions that may be sparked during the conflict, which definitely will happen due to random event cards. So those will kind of be areas that rebels will be able to come out of the Sahara Desert from. And you can see we do have an impassable Sahara Desert, although there is a land connection, but Spain controls that. So, as the French, you can sit a cruiser here, a transport here, and just bring guys down. But if you want that land connection, you can get it. You're just going to need to attack Spain, which, wouldn't be terrible. The fact that if you got Britain and maybe France to kind of line up their forces to prepare an invasion of Spain, you can definitely destroy the Spanish and take Spanish Sahara and, get that extra cash for the Allies if you really wanted to. Especially because the Germans can align Spain, so it'd be kind of a good preemptive assault. So then further into Africa, we've got all these little colonies and everything along the shore. And then a main thing was expanding the German influence down here. So Togoland's the same. We did take the IPC out of Togoland, and there's a lot of IPC changes, so everything's pretty much different now in this game. But we've got the German colony of Cameroon. All of these trees represent jungle terrain. And so, again, and another thing with all these added territories, it adds options. The fact that the German strategy isn't just move into here and then move into here. Like that's your normal kind of 1914 German kind of holdout in East Africa. So now, with all these different zones, if you felt like it, you could pull back into the jungle so that you don't have to face shore bombardment. You could launch a multi-pronged attack, go into French Equatorial Africa, attack the Belgian Congo to move further into these IPC territories. Setting up some units that fell. We've got East Africa, which is kind of the main German holdout of this area. Now, it's worth the same as the other German colonies, but the fact that it has a city, so that's a good defensive area. We've got a jungle terrain area. Uh, Zanzibar will have a militia on it, so Germany can move in to pick up that militia if they felt like it. They have a lot of ability to strike out. You know, like they can hit the Belgian Congo. They can go down to Mozambique and declare war on the Portuguese. Plus, they have this cruiser here, I forget the name of it, the Königsberg, and plus you get a monitor, and that basically represents the German Lake Tanganyika fleet. So, and again, with that monitor, that provides the Germans with a valuable asset, with the fact that they can basically take this thing, and they don't really need to move it for an attack into Mozambique, but basically they can hit Mozambique, then they could hit Sofala, or they could just, once they get Mozambique, just sail out and link up with their cruiser in 73. Or they can continue the assault and basically move into Transvaal, Rhodesia, help out their guys in Angola, and then move up into the Belgian Congo. So it's definitely a valuable asset for them in the African theater. So then we've got South Africa, which is another pretty good holdout. Again, it has their own technical fleet. This is a auxiliary ship, so yeah, basically the Germans have this special type of ship. It's a pretty weak unit, but they are allowed to build them in a lot of zones outside of their home nation. But you can see their main heavy equipment is down here. It's kind of a little bit limited. If they want to link up, they're going to have to hit Rhodesia. But you can see they've got artillery there. They've got a desert to try to hold out against Cape Colony. But yeah, so again, a lot of options in Africa now. Especially we've got the Dervish state, which will have a, the Ottomans can move in here. There's going to be random event cards that'll have them maybe aligned to the Ottomans. We've got the Sinai Desert, which is its own zone. So now the Ottomans, for one, won't just be able to say, if the British decide to move units from Egypt, or, the Ottomans won't just be able to sit in Egypt, take it out, and then waltz all over Africa. They're going to have to hit the Sinai. And the good thing is, too, is that holding that, even if they don't take Egypt, just holding the Sinai Desert is a pretty valuable asset, because then the Suez Canal, it'll remain opened, but Ottoman artillery will be able to fire at British ships, and the Ottomans can also try to sail their fleet out, although British artillery can fire at it. But that's a pretty decent tactical maneuver. The Ottoman Empire looks fairly similar to what it is, but I kind of this looks a lot like a historical board gaming's map, but what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so like some of this stuff that looks like historical board gaming stuff, or like design features. So like, let's take this for instance. In my research, I found, I think it was an Ottoman map of the period and a British map of the period, and they both had this this sort of map that showed the extent of the Ottoman and British holdings, and also with the Arabian Rebellion. Then we've got I guess Persia, but I guess the correct term is Iran, and that is being occupied by both the Russians and the British, and does still have a neutral territory here. We've got India, which is kind of just India. Really big Australia down here. We've got a lot more German islands in the Pacific Ocean, so that'll definitely be a good place for the Germans to try to hold off British forces, especially tie up Australian forces, because the Australians don't start with a massive fleet, so the Germans could at least try to contest them in the Pacific to help take off reinforcements that might make it to Europe. The Philippines are quite big. That's mainly just because of some rebellions that could break out for the Americans. We've got German Sing Sao with their East Asian Squadron. We have concession cities, which will be special zones of basically areas that can be attacked, and there'll be some victory conditions concerning those. They're basically just colonies in China. We've got Japan, which is fighting for the Allies. Japan's main goal will definitely be to fight the Germans in the Pacific and probably just keep the Australians safe while they move infantry to Europe. And I guess lastly, we've just got the blow-up boxes in this corner here, which I kind of showed you guys before, but those are just the main kind of fronts that get contested. So yeah, I mean, I can go further in depth in future videos, especially if you guys want me to kind of do a tutorial on some of the rules and the sections of the rules, which are currently, I'm trying to finalize like stuff like the setups, the rules and everything. So yeah, but if you guys want to see those, I definitely suggest leaving it in the comment section. If you enjoyed this look at my map, leave a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And yeah, so I hope to see you guys again. Cobra, out.